Welcome to Creative Love Radio. This is episode number 2, Projection in Love. Welcome to Creative Love Radio with Debbie and Dr. Rob. With love, the old rules of dating and commitment no longer apply. The technology's changing, roles are changing as women are stepping into their power all around the world. And the way to approach relationships needs to evolve with them. We are redefining relationships to guide you to greater love, more success, and living your purpose through the latest research in neuroscience, Jungian psychology, and Eastern wisdom. Get ready for another inspirational episode of Creative Love Radio.
Welcome to Creative Love Radio. Today we're talking about projection.
Ooh, episode number 2. I'm Debbie Burnt Maldonado. Those of you who know me as Debbie Burnt from Let Love In. And I'm here with my husband and business partner and everything, Dr. Rob.
Partner in crime.
Yeah, we're here talking about projection today. A lot of people think they know about projection. They know that, they're projecting. We've heard that term before. So, Doctor, tell us what projection means. What does it really mean?
What does it really mean? Well, Carl Jung came up with this idea of a projection. I think Freud used it as well, more as an ego defense. But Jung really took it to higher levels in understanding how we see the world, and in particular for us, how we see each other. In relating to each other, we cannot help but project our expectations onto each other. So when we fall in love or when we're attracted to someone, we have to understand that a lot of it is projection.
Really?
If you think about love at first sight,
Yes.
how can you love someone who you don't even know? Well, projection accounts for that.
Or even just seeing someone online, and you've had that experience. Well, I know I have, where you read their credentials, like you're hiring someone for a role, and you're like, okay, they look good. They say they like the same things as I do, and then you're projecting in your mind like all these things onto them that they could be the one, and this is the person I've been searching for, and then they don't respond, and then all of a sudden in your mind you're just like crushed. Why didn't that person like me or wink back at me, or why did they not respond? And I had all these hopes and dreams that this person would be the one, or we had a talk and then they blew me off and they disappeared. Well, all that, and love is really, that romantic love is all about projection.
Right.
And it's good to understand it so we know what's going on in our minds and then it's not getting caught up in it.
Yeah, and a lot of people are discouraged when we explain projection to them because they think, well, am I just seeing my own mind basically projected onto that other person? And in a sense, yes, you are. But it doesn't mean there's not another person there to relate to.
Yes.
But just to understand that in the beginning, you're going to see a mixture of that person and your own expectations projected onto them. And of course, that's why we have that kind of sense that this is something extraordinary. This is the divine entering into my life when we fall in love with this other person, because we're projecting our divinity onto them, our higher sense of self onto them.
And so when we get infatuated, I think people that get infatuated often, a lot of times they don't know their own love, or they aren't in touch with their own divinity, and they're looking for it outside. So it almost as if every person becomes the savior, that infatuation, that knight in shining armor, the damsel I'm going to rescue, and it's going to be this great experience. And I don't think people realize that it's really them. They're seeing their own self that they're denying, and they think that it's in that other person and not in them.
Yeah, it's a very important point. Now, it seems to be that nature sets it up this way so that we can fall in love with this other person, right? If we just saw them as mere mortals with all their faults, maybe we would just run away, right, and say, I'm not interested. But because there is this strong infatuation phase, this projection onto them, we stick around and we say, I want more of this.
And so we don't look at it as pathological or something like wrong. It's really it's like you said, that natural. If we didn't have it, what would make you go out on a date with a stranger, this strange person, which is so not how we were brought up. Don't talk to strangers, right? It's to have us to go. This not only a projection onto that person, but the idea of love. This idea that someone's going to come in and save my life and change my life. Right? That's, you're projecting that idea onto the people you meet.
Absolutely. And it's important to understand because a lot of people are disillusioned once it starts to fade and they think love has ended because the projection is fading, right? And they think, well, there's no love here. That's when they say, I fell out of love, or I love him, but I'm not in love with him. All those cliches, right? Because the infatuation is not going to last forever. No person can sustain that level of projection onto them and say, I'm divine. I'm going to fulfill all your wishes and I'm your savior. So
how does this mechanism first start to help us, like early on, like as we're developing? The projection is we see the world, and in our minds we make these assumptions about the world, and it really we put our opinions, or we watch other people and how they kind of associate and assign things as good or bad, and we understand, and so we project that into an object. So here's a really simple example, right? The dog bites you as a kid. You project onto every dog that they're dangerous. And so in a way, it's actually helps us stay away from dangerous things, like don't put your hand on fire and all these things, and these judgments about this object out there is projection.
Absolutely.
And so you see how valuable it can be in a way, but then how it can actually avoid you having really great relationship with puppies and have a new dog because of this one incident that you projected, and now you're doing that on every dog. And so if you think about your love life, how many times have you thought you projected all the past pain or heartache you've had on another person with another person onto the next person in front of you?
Yeah, it boils down to this simple fact. I mean, most of us don't see it because it's so right in front of us, but everything we experience is filtered through our personal mind. You can't experience anything, including this other person, except through this filter that we call our mind. And so inevitably, you're going to bring in your own past experience. There's no other way to see the world for you except through your own lens, through this mind that I call myself, my ego. And that then gives the world a very distorted perception for us. In other words, we're going to see it from our point of view, from our past history, from our past experiences, and there is no other way to see it.
And we kind of think that's just the way it is, almost. So we're not even noticing it's a projection. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we don't. We suppose that we're seeing some kind of reality, some objective reality, that everybody's seeing it the same way that we're seeing it.
Yes,
that's the illusion right there. That we think everyone is seeing it the way we're seeing it, and it's not necessarily so. Everybody's seeing it from their own point of view and their own perspective. And that's why you have these misunderstandings that you know. I was there in the room and I saw the same thing.
We both agreed to this.
Right, but we came away with very different interpretations.
You know, one time a client of mine said she went to one of her parents died, and she went to the funeral, and two of the siblings, other siblings, and her other siblings, there were four, and two had a completely different opinion of the mother than her and her brother, and she was like, how we all grew up in the same household. How do they see her so differently and us see her so differently? And that happens in families too. You're around the same person, they're around the same environment, but your individual experience is so subjective. And I think we find that we think it's objective in the world. Like there's defined lines between good and bad and the way people behave and how people should behave. And we don't realize that we're basically seeing it through our own perspective.
Yep. Now, this is confirmed by really modern science and the whole psychology of perception, that we are experiencing a type of internal model of the world, and that's all we have access to. This is mind-blowing just in itself, right? Now, Jung at the time, he didn't have all the neuroscience yet. It was only starting at his time. But he was looking at some of the Eastern wisdom that came through meditation and through the study of the mind through kind of internal introspection. And they had the same conclusion, basically, that we are experiencing our own mind, basically, when we think about the world and in relationships as well. So now it's an interesting mix, because now we have a deeper understanding of the Eastern wisdom, and we have more knowledge, and scholars have kind of dug through all the literature and more of the writings and understandings of meditation and yoga from ancient times. And we also have more neuroscience to verify that what we are experiencing is this incredible thing called consciousness, and that our mind creates these beautiful experiences for us through this multi-sensory experience we call mind. Now, again, a lot of people are dismayed by this, because they think, well, does that mean that it's not real? Does this mean that my love for this other person is simply these neurotransmitters and these hormones playing tricks on my mind? And the answer is no, it doesn't mean it's not real. It simply means that the way it's real to us, the way it manifests for us, is through these mechanisms. And that's the only way we can experience them. So there is no other way somewhere out there that is more real. That's again the illusion that the mind creates, that we suppose that there is some external reality that's solid, and that what we are experiencing is, kind of our own interpretation of it. That's a false understanding as well. It is essentially that what we experience is the reality. It is the reality, but the way it's real to us, it's very dreamlike. It's very subjective. It's very kind of mind stuff.
So when you think about projection, you think about you're getting involved with another person. You can't see themselves outside of your own mind, independent of your own mind. So you can't step outside your mind and say, oh, this is who they are and this is my projection. It's basically all a projection. And so and of course you can communicate, and they have their own mind, as far as we know. There's not verifiable that they have a different mind. So they have their mind with their own projection on you. And so what happens is that we kind of fit together like puzzle pieces, that the projections meet. And that's where we kind of hook up with each other. And so it's either a mutual projection and people fall in love, and then one person falls out, or a one-sided projection. One-sided infatuation, that's what I mean. And so when two people, their projections come together and you're in a relationship and you're really bonding, you actually create almost like a third mind, because now you have your mind and their mind connected, and there's like a unique experience that happens between two people. That's very beautiful. It's like a mutual, kind of like this baby that's being born between the two of you that you call the relationship. And so there's your identity, their identity, and then there's this relationship, which is a combination of both projections happening, but you're only experiencing your side. So it's really mind-blowing to think about. A lot of people think, well, if I change behavior, or if I act a certain way, maybe that other person will fall in love with me. But you can't go and manipulate their mind. I mean, you could play games and maybe play a little hard to get them more interested, and that might work for someone who's afraid of commitment. But is that what you really want? You want to just be yourself. And so first of all, we have to notice it's a projection. And the next part is to understand what we're projecting. Like what patterns are we projecting, or opinions that we have from the past that we're projecting onto this person, because then we can't really see them clearly for who they really are. We're seeing just who we think they are. And they're seeing us that same way. They're seeing us how they think they've been trained to see women or men, that other person's trained. So really, it's almost like they're not even seeing us initially. We're just kind of think we're with this person that's a stranger, and we're creating like the paper doll. We're putting like the little outfit on them that we think goes on them.
Yeah,
dressing them up and making them in our own mind the way we think they are.
Right. And if we think about the ego and its function again, and kind of getting behind the mask. So what is really happening when we truly fall in love, in the sense that we really let our guard down, right? We take the mask off, in a sense.
No.
When we take the mask off and we're vulnerable and really open to this other person, and they in turn are unmasked, and we are experiencing each other in this deeper sense without the filter of the persona ego, that is a very powerful experience for a human being. We experience the divine, basically, the oneness of reality. That's why it feels so incredible when we experience that, because we understand with a direct experience that there's something more than my ego persona, right? There's something deeper in me that transcends all that. I experience now the universe as one. You know, I am one with this other being. There's no separation. There's no sense of I'm cut off. It reconnects us to the universe, to the divine.
So that infatuation gives us a taste of that. But if we don't understand what it is and we think it's in them, that's where we feel the heartache and the pain when they leave, because we think they gave that to us. When we start retrieving, I call it reclaiming your power, when you retrieve that projection and you start to see, oh, this is my mind, this is my own divinity, this feeling is coming from inside of me, then everything could start to change. That's why it's really important to really understand what projection is and how we're seeing the other person, because it will free you in that relationship. It'll free yourself from being caught up in almost like a fog of reality that is really not happening. Like people assuming, when a friend of mine said she was projecting onto this guy. He was this teacher, and she told this story one time in public, so I'm free to share it. She's fine with it. No one knows who she is now. But she said she really loved this guy. Like, she was like infatuated with him, and she went on a date with him. All her heart was going into this person, and then he didn't call after the date, and she thought, something's wrong with me. And so she created this whole story in her mind of, this person that was so great didn't like me, so now I guess I'm not that good. So I have to now lower my standards and go for someone that's not as awesome as he is, because I'm not that great, because he didn't match. So much weight that we put on other people to approve of us, right? That projection again, to see that we're defined by them. And then years later, she found out that he just wasn't ready. He really liked her, but he just wasn't ready for commitment. And he actually thought she was the one. And so in her mind, she created this whole reality of she's not good enough, when in fact, the guy was like thinking something else in his mind. And we tend to do that. We live in this distorted reality of assuming what the other person is thinking, assuming what it means about us when they do certain things. And we caught up in that assumption, and that's what the projection is. We just project our mind onto the situation, and we feel living basically the same story we've been telling ourselves most of our life.
Yeah, if you think about what we bring with the projection, we're bringing all our past experiences really from early childhood on. So when we started to experience our family, our parents, and really... in depth psychology, the relationship with a mother is considered the primary relationship. So whatever experience you had with your mother is the way you're going to see and experience a lot of the world, because she's the first material substance that you encounter.
The relationship too, like that bond.
Does it give back to you warmth? Does it care for you? Does it meet your needs? Is it responsive to your emotional outcries? So the way the mother reacts and responds to you early on is conditioned into your mind. And that's the way you're going to see the world. In other words, that's the way you're going to project your mind onto others, especially in love.
Yeah, so if you don't trust your mother or she gave you mixed signals, and we all have, and we're not talking about like abuse or anything like that. I mean, everyone's had experiences with their parents that aren't perfect. I mean, we all didn't live in the Brady Bunch. And even the Brady Bunch was a little dysfunctional. Right? I mean, like, come on, like the brothers and sisters, and are we really brothers and sisters? I don't know. I digress. But we have to think about this ideal that that we had to have the perfect childhood in order to have a perfect life. And we all had childhoods were raised by humans. So we want to normalize that and say, this is a healthy part of the mind. This is how we function. We learn to adapt. I mean, if we didn't have this projection, this idea, we wouldn't be able to know how to like basically interact with the world. And the mother basically teaches us that initial lesson.
Right, because if we see it from the other perspective, right, that nature is trying to get us to drop our ego, to drop our mask, then we see it as, okay, the projection is helping me kind of get to that point, because it's presenting a very attractive divine vision for me that I'm saying, I need to go for this.
Yeah.
You know, this is something I want. I've been looking for this all my life. So it's presenting it to us in this beautiful person in front of us, who we see as divine. You know, they're glowing, their hair is blowing in the wind, and their eyes sparkle like stars.
Is that how you felt when you saw me?
Absolutely. I still do.
Aww.
And so we're caught up, right? We want to move towards it. In other words, we're not defending ourselves. We're not protecting ourselves. We're saying, I'm ready to rip off my mask and go towards this. So it's a way that nature prompts us to go beyond our ego. If we're willing to go there, right? But if we think from the ego perspective, she's going to fulfill all my needs, all my ego needs, right? Then I'm only staying at that survival level. I'm only staying at that I need, strengthening the ego instead of transcending it.
Well, that's a very important point. I think most people, I would say most humans in the world, believe in that projection and then put so much on the other person that based on commitment and culture that you owe me now because I gave you my love, right? And so then the ego gets involved in that projection and almost like, what can you do for me lately? That kind of thing. And the power struggle in couples, but then they're still connected with this infatuation that keeps kind of showing itself. And other times it breaks up that projection. A healthy relationship is when we realize the projection, we don't not feel those feelings toward the other person, but we realize that it's our own love and that we're bringing to us something different. But I think a lot of what we talk about, that resistance to letting go, that holding on to the log, like we talked about in episode 1, it really is a tough thing for us to be our true, authentic selves in a relationship. And that's what you're talking about. When we take the mask off and we realize that projection, we're putting all our hopes and dreams on someone else and we're not getting caught up in it, that other person fulfilling all our needs and our selfish needs versus what can I bring to the relationship versus what can you give me? And I think that's a different conversation. And it really is hard. Imagine going on a date going, what can I give you? right? That if I immediately I could hear women thinking, no, I would never do that. He'd be like, let's go to bed right now, right? So it's about being that vulnerability. Like, what can I give in this relationship without the fear they're going to take anything, right? It's that giving without that feeling there's a resource limitation, that if I give you something, I need something in return, that giving. And I think people misunderstand that. They think of it as being like a doormat, or I am so giving in a relationship. I am so, caring and understanding, and they're the ones who aren't. But that's still, are you doing it to get them to love you back? And that's really where the ego gets caught up in that.
Yeah, so at the practical level, the way we can use this information is to start to think, how am I projecting my own mind onto this person? Right? And just start testing it and questioning it. We don't have to, like you say, make ourselves doormats and just, let people walk all over us. But just to start to think, if I am experiencing this attraction or this infatuation, how much of it is coming from me and from my own expectations and my own past? And just start to observe your own mind in doing this. And try to make the connection to your past histories, the way you were raised, your early experiences, the way you related to your mother and your parents and your siblings. And try to make those connections, because you'll start to see in a very direct way that a lot of it is you playing out these expectations over and over. That's why people fall into patterns. And most people that we work with, they know their patterns. They say, yeah, I know I keep repeating these patterns because they're coming from your own mind. But the key here is to experience those realities directly.
Yeah, it's not just understanding it intellectually.
Yes, and not just theoretically, or not just believing because somebody says so. You can actually experience these things directly in your own mind. That way you'll have no doubt, and it won't be based on any kind of magical belief. It'll be a direct way of observing your own mind.
So next time someone doesn't call you, or you're interested in someone and they don't respond, you think about the story that's running in your mind. Just listen to it. Just sit back and go, okay, what am I assuming here? And you can even write down, if you feel like it, your assumptions, like write the whole story out. Well, he's probably, he's a banker, so he's probably cold, or he's a good-looking guy, so he probably wants a woman that's younger, or he thinks he's too good for me, or maybe he doesn't want a powerful woman. And that story, and I want you to think, how does that story keep repeating, and how can everyone think that? And then we start to see those assumptions. And I think the first step is really to see the projection. And then in other episodes, we'll keep going with this deeper type of way of looking at relationships and opening your mind to changing it.
Yeah, because in the beginning, a lot of people just resist this so much, and it's natural to resist it. But they insist. Well, no, it's not my projection. That person really is very attractive, or that person really is very obnoxious. Because other people are seeing them that way.
Everyone agrees at work that Mary in accounting is mean, right? And so if everyone believes it, it must be so.
Yeah. And that creates a stronger illusion for people.
It's like probably a collective projection, where a group of people get together and they all agree that person's bad. And that's really where gossip happens, right? Where friends say, oh yeah, she did this, and they tell the story, and then you believe it, and then all of a sudden this one person is this terrible person that did this thing, and everyone's projecting onto that person in a collective way.
Yes, but if that was true, then everyone would be in love with the person that we are in love with.
Yes.
Everyone would say, that person is divine. They are the savior. They are the one, right? Because those qualities would be in that person, not in our projection. But we see that's not the reality.
Yeah. So to take away from today, number one, projection is good. It's the way our mind works. It helps us navigate through reality, and it also, that infatuation really facilitates that desire for love and that longing for that other person, so we can basically let go of the ego. It's that driving for us. But it also, the last part is that if you don't realize you're projecting, you can get caught up in it and you're powerless to it. So projection is good, but you have to know that you're projecting in order to really reclaim that control and power over your reality.
That's a good point. Yes.
So that's it for today. Thank you for your wonderful insights, Dr. Rob,
You're
as
welcome.
always. And we'll see you in the next episode of Creative Love Radio.
See you soon. Much love.
You've been listening to Creative Love Radio with Debbie and Dr. Rob. For more information, visit us on our website at creativelove.com.